Well, Steinhoff reported a 48% jump in first half headline earnings per share. That's to 166.5 cents. The group said revenue rose 123% to 37.6 billion rand, while operating profit for the year was up 59% to 3.7 billion rand. Tshepo, let's throw this to you. Obviously, we have the inclusion of Conforama, which they bought for $1.6 billion in this reporting period. So that has skewed the results. It'll be interesting to see the next set of results when we've got a realistic base effect.
For sure, but to be fair, I think these were really impressive numbers. If you strip out Conforama, revenue still grew by 20%. So I think it's not just a Conforama case. I think the rest of the group was firing quite nicely. So I think overall, really good set of numbers, even factoring in that acquisition.
One of the largest furniture plays on the European continent, so to speak, as a result of that Conforama acquisition. So you've got to, then if you say you strip out Conforama, their revenue is still up 20%. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
We're still seeing traction in Europe then. That's an interesting element here.
It is an interesting element. I think in Europe and in the local assets as well, I think you've had JD Group as an example doing particularly well over the last couple months, and that's starting to feed through. So that acquisition's actually paid dividends quite nicely for them. And in terms of the rest of their European exposure, I think part of that will be currency. Currency would have helped those results as well. But again, given the business focus of Steinhoff, it's increasingly towards the lower end. And you'd expect in this sort of environment, in a difficult environment for Europe, they'd actually do pretty well.
Paul Theron mentions JD Group, and of course it's no secret Steinhoff wants to control JD Group, and that through a share swap deal. Looks as though they want to bring down their holding in Cap International from some 88% to 62%. It sounds like a complicated deal. What's the bottom line?
Look, Steinhoff is not in fact a furniture-related company. It's not even a logistics company. It's not a manufacturing company. What it is a permanent corporate finance project. You know, for the last decade and a half, Marcus Jooste has been in the process of continuous re-engineering since they bought the Goma factory in Rustenburg. But they're doing a good job. You know, you'd have to give them it's kind of pulling well. Conforama, as Tshepo says, is the sort of McDonald's of the restaurant industry. So it's doing okay because people are trading down.
Did you say McDonald's of the restaurant industry? Did you use that terminology on Steinhoff?
Not quite.
I just wanted to check that you weren't putting words in his mouth.
It's the fact that in a sort of tough economic environment, people still need to, you know, equip their kitchens and, you know, young people moving into homes and so on. So that, I think, will continue to do well, but I'm not convinced that the market really loves this stock. I mean, for all of his career, Marcus Jooste has privately complained that the market doesn't love them enough, and they don't give them a valid PE comparable to other retail concerns. And I guess the question is, you know, will they continue to do transactions? Yes, you referred to the local ones, makes sense. But where's it going? Where's it going? Is it ever going to get the respect that it deserves in the marketplace?
Well, Tshepo, let's throw it to you. Is it ever going to get the respect it deserves in the marketplace, currently trading at 26.34 rand on Steinhoff?
I'd certainly hope so. I think over the last year or so, it's actually been a pretty decent performer. So I think if you're looking at the last year or so, the market has shown some love, if I can put it that way. And I, as a shareholder, I certainly hope that it continues and we see margin expansion. In terms of where the company is going, I think there's talk about the next acquisitions being into broader emerging market. I think they've pretty much done what they can in Europe, especially with this Conforama purchase. So it will be interesting to see, given the acquisitive nature of Steinhoff, what their next strategy is with this cash that they seem to be generating.
There appears to be a strategy to break the group up into three parts. We've got furniture, emerging markets, furniture Europe, and then the manufacturing element. Then with a listing somewhere in between. What are your thoughts on the strategy?
Sure. I think in terms of that broad strategy, it makes sense. If you're looking at the European targeting, it is the lower end. And if you, like us, you think that for the next 10 or 15 years, European growth is going to be pretty stagnant, that's probably the type of exposure that you want in terms of thematically. And then from the local assets, I think it makes sense that JD Group probably looks to expand into Africa.
Paul, I want to pick up on a comment that you made earlier. You said that Marcus Jooste has been complaining that investors don't attribute the rating that Steinhoff deserves to the stock. Perhaps it's more about the market not liking Marcus Jooste. What's your response to that?
Well, I don't know that it's that. I think it's more that people don't quite know what to expect from him next. In other words, the debt to equity levels have always been high. In other words, he likes to do deals which have a big debt element.
Do you like Marcus Jooste?
Well, what's interesting about him is that just when you think the whole thing has settled down, some new news story emerges about, that he's got a side interest in a huge number of racehorses, or he is the biggest Rolex owner in South Africa, or he is, part owner of PSG in a complicated structure that he has with his mate Christo Wiese, and they're swapping PSG shares for more Steinhoff shares. So I guess the only comment here is that he's a very busy guy, and the market prefers boring CEOs that are just very good. You can't dodge the question.
Do you, Paul Theron, like Marcus Jooste?
Well, we've never owned the share for clients, which I guess sort of tells a story of its own. But I would have to concede that, we didn't give him the benefit of the doubt when the share was trading at 10 Rand a share.
I'm not going to get a question.
So how can
I'm not going to get an answer out of him there. Hot or not? Tshepo, in your book, Steinhoff.
In my books, on a PE now, after these results of less than 10, decent yield, I think it's quite hot.
Paul, are we even going?
No, there are hotter others. There are others that are hotter.
So not hot in your book?
Not hot for me.